G'day legends, welcome back to another episode of the Mock Sports presents Off the Track, or as we could probably call it today, Nick, Off the Field, as we have our first ever sporting guest in the studio today for a fantastic chat. We're pumped up about this one, weren't we, Nick?
100%. Today we had Matt Dunning in the studio, had a great yarn with him about his career, about how Rugby Union is going in Australia and how they can bring it back to how it was back in the early 2000s to the late 90s, and how much he loves the game and all these stories he has. So it's a great interview. Give it a listen. Before we get into this one, guys, just want to give a big shout out to our sponsors over at Stridyl.
That's right, Stridyl.com, where entertainment meets opportunity. They've got a fantastic entertainment library right now, chock-a-block of horse racing content. You can go there right now and get all the behind-the-scenes access to Coolangatta's prep over in England, as well as even some podcast shows, including our very own, and even a brand new one by the Derby Racing Syndicate, going through their history as well as their current stars such as Osmosis, Overpass, and the likes of that. They've got an episode up with Bjorn Baker where they go through his career and their relationship. It's fantastic. So if any of that interests you, head to Stridyl.com right now to check out all of the great content.
So Matty, thank you for coming on. Can you just tell us where it all started, how you got into your rugby, where you grew up and stuff like that? Like, where did it all start from?
Yeah, interesting. Thanks for having me on first, guys. Very cool. Good setup. So I was born in Canada. No relatives of Canadian descent at all. Mum and Dad went over for the Montreal Olympics in 1976 for 6 months and ended up staying for 8 years. And I was born over there and came back to Australia when I was 5. And Dad loved rugby. He played at Eastwood. He's sort of from the age of 19 onwards, we came back to Australia, and Dad played a lot of rugby in Canada. Wasn't allowed to play rugby till I was 12 or 13, first year of high school. I thought it was because I worried about me getting hurt, but I just think they wanted to travel very far when soccer was local in Barrera. We grew up in Barrera, which is north of Sydney, and then played rugby at Beecroft Juniors, Beecroft Penny Hills in those days, and Eastwood Juniors, and that's how it all started, I guess, from a very grassroots level.
Oh, well, you mentioned Canada. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe your brother, Casey, played for Canada.
Yeah, he played 5 tests for Canada. I often joke at family dues, it's like playing third grade at Eastwood. He played 5 tests, and my younger brother, Josh, he played the Canadian 21s tournament for Canadian 21s for Canada, in Argentina.
Oh, that's good. So you got a couple of Canadian internationals and a Wallaby. Back in the day, though, is it a lot of backyard rugby games when you were kids that really get the spark going? Yeah,
look, Casey's only 18 months younger than me, so we grew up together. Josh is 6 years, so Josh just got belted. He's got belted and belted. He's actually got no cartilage in his nose because he just used to push it so hard. He's just got like a rubbery little nose now. So Josh just got tormented, the poor guy. But Casey, he's always a little bit smaller than me, but we played a lot of footy together. Casey did very well. He played New South Wales schoolboys and first grade at Eastwood and North. So he got the travel bug, and he actually played. I think he played one game. He played professionally over in England. Played one game a couple of games for London Irish, which is the premiership team over there. So rugby was all our family did. Rugby. I was cricket, rugby, basketball, and soccer, but very much a rugby household. All front rowers at one stage. Josh got too tall; he's 6'4", but live scrums in the kitchen when we were very young, and it was we're all front rowers.
Very nice. Before I get into the start of your career, I just wanted to bring up, like you said, you played a bit of cricket. Are you any good at cricket?
I don't think... I guess I played all the Green Shield and I played a lot of that sort of stuff.
Yep.
I loved it. Very enthusiastic cricketer. Hence, I was a wicketkeeper. So I played for... I played all the Hornsby Karingai sort of
rep stuff.
Yep. And then I played it. I didn't make ND's Green Shield when I was at 2 or 3 years young. Mm-hmm. So I went to North Sydney and made it there, so just stayed with them. Played Green Shield with North Sydney and played grade, and also like a part of playing Green Shield was going to Percy's, so I just fell in love with North Sydney Cricket Club because Percy's is the bar, used to be the bar across the road from North Sydney Oval.
Yeah.
So that was very fun. So, but I guess when you're 110 kilos and you're 16, your future of being a wicket keeper is pretty limited. So as much as I love cricket, was enthusiastic about it, I wasn't a good enough bat to make. Well, I possibly could have made some rep size batting 5 or 6 maybe, but a keeper batsman was a lot easier. And once keeping went away, I was actually a better keeper at 13 and 14 than I probably was at 16 because I was 20 kilos lighter.
But it was always rugby. Always rugby was the motivation going forward.
I didn't play rugby until I was 12 or 13 because of I was a goalkeeper in Barara and Hornsby Ku-ring-gai. But rugby was always it was just waiting to play. I always played tackle footy with the big kids down at Marina Street.
Good oval
got belted. Got belted. Tried to belt Kiwi kids. Just grew up and loved it. Always loved rugby. Loved the contact. Loved the ethos, the camaraderie. And in those days, I would have loved to play rugby league too, but people sort of forget that rugby only went professional in the mid-90s, 96. So my dad wouldn't really let me play Brow Rugby League. It was sort of... Because in those days, once you went to rugby league... And it shouldn't have... As a kid, it would have been okay, but just the way my dad thought about it was that you're playing rugby, and I wanted to do it, mind you, so I never sort of got to play rugby league till I was retired at the back, like retired from rugby.
Yeah, fair enough. As we progressed through, you obviously played the Australian schoolboys and the Australian under-21s. What was it like playing back then? Because obviously you see now in those teams it'd be so professional, like all these different things, like their diets are trained, like everything's all looked at. What was it like back then when it's probably a bit more loose than how it is now?
Yeah, it was a lot looser back then. So I played Australian schoolboys in 96, and then after that, 97 played Australian 19s, and 98 and 99 played in the Australian 21s when it was 21s then. That was sort of my progression. Look, on our tour in 96 to New Zealand, we were all billeted, for most of it. So we were Australian schoolboy side getting billeted, which was fun. So that was very different than you'd probably see today. It was still really, I remember my schoolboy rugby and my junior rugby is really an amateur ethos, sort of more like it was probably in the 91, 80s era. That's how I grew up in rugby, which is, realistically, my ambition as a 15, 14-year-old kid was to get some money out of rugby so I could do it to the highest level. Like, it was to play for the Wallabies. It was to play for Eastwood first grade, sorry. It was to play for New South Wales and then play for the Wallabies, but never was it to do it for a full-time job. If I get a few bob out of it to cover expenses, how good would that be, And I think with that mentality, it breeds a different sort of person and a different rugby guy. Obviously now, kids just want to be professional rugby players. They often don't even want to be union, or it doesn't matter if it's union or league, whatever will give me a full-time job, I'll take it. So it's very different then. So I was really fortunate that I grew up with the amateur ethos, and then was able to get paid like the professionals, and also very lucky that I missed a lot of social media and Facebook. So we missed that too.
Yeah,
can't get cancelled back then. No phones.
You couldn't get cancelled back then, and he said that 21's trip and stuff. We just ate whatever, we drank whatever. You generally wouldn't drink the night before a game, but
couple nights before.
Other than that, it wasn't too strict in sort of that junior stuff. Test rugby was a little bit different, albeit I generally had a drink midweek.
Fair enough.
Oh well then. You mentioned that, goal 1, Eastwood, goal 2, Waratahs. What was it like rising through those grades and then finally getting to make that debut at seniors and then Waratahs level?
Yeah, it was like I grew up with Eastwood, so I played Eastwood juniors from 13 to 17s. And then I played Colts when I was still at school, so I was playing second and first grade Colts when I was still at school, which was awesome for me. Obviously, being a front rower playing against 20-year-old, some of the best 20-year-olds week in, week out when you're at schools under 18 was awesome for my development. That was great. I got picked out of a bit of obscurity. North Home Grammar I went to school at, 400 co-ed, no Saturday sport. So, obviously rugby in those days, probably the same now, as most of the teams picked out of the GPS, CS, or the equivalent in Brisbane, and obviously then there was no other state really, other than those two states. ACT probably St Eddie's, but so I got picked out of there. The fact I was front row playing senior rules, and I had I was very lucky in that. And then from there, I obviously went to Eastwood straight out of the Australian schoolboys. We won the Colts grand final in '97, which was amazing. That was an experience I always remember. Sydney Uni had just started giving full scholarships to everyone. I know that because they offered me one. I can't believe I didn't take it, but uni wasn't on my high agenda, so it didn't really matter. But they paid for all the guys' unis. They started that in sort of '96, all their college fees for a lot of the players, and I turned that down. And so they won every game during the year, finished minor premiers, and got the bonus points had just come in, so they got 99 points out of a possible 100. 20 games, one game they didn't get a bonus point, so they were. And we finished fourth. We had a very good side looking back at it, but we were a bit social, and they were virtually professional, if not semi-professional.
Very well drilled.
And we was amateur, and then we ended up beating them in the grand final at Concord. So that was pretty awesome. And then
brilliant.
All of us went to grade the next year in '98, so I was still first year 21s, which was youngish for grade. Made my debut against Randwick at Coogee Oval. Can't remember the day, but it was May. So I was 19. I just turned 19, and it was awesome. I got to play against lots of Warwick War. He was incredible. Obviously, always grew up man hating Randwick because they were the great side of the 80s and the 90s, 70s even, and got to make my debut there. And I made a joke to Jeff Reed, our first grade number 8, and made a joke at Warwick War's expense in the bar, saying, "Look at him, that big bloke," because Warwick War's mountain, 125, fit and 6'7". I said, "Look, he's only drinking middies. What a soft prick." And Jeff goes, "That's a schooner. His hand was that big." And I went, "Oh, wow." And because he was drinking them so fast, it looked like he was drinking middies. I went, "Oh, my goodness, that's impressive." So that was my first grade game. And then made a debut with the Waratahs in the Ricoh Cup, which was sort of the end of year comp they used to have back there in 2000. And I remember a good mate of mine, Chewy, I was sort of playing in that to get a contract for 2001 in Super Rugby, and he goes, you just got to do something that stands out. You like score a try, make a big tackle, get sent off, and I scored a try in that Argentinian game and got sent off. So he said, "You'll get a contract for sure now." So, so it was unreal. And then Wallabies debut came a bit later in 2003 in the World Cup against Namibia. Yeah, that's right, Namibia. We won 142-0.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. How did you not get over the line in 142-0 win?
Didn't score a try. I think my stats, they started doing stats then. I think I made about 70 clear-outs but made 0 tackles, 0 touch the ball. We just literally, you just run to a ruck, clear out and go, whatever it was. It wouldn't be 70, but whatever it was. Morgan Turinui played about 10 minutes and scored 3 tries. But that was sort of my test debut, so really. And then my second game was a World Cup final in 2003 off the bench. So that was a big jump up. So that's sort of how I made my debuts. And, really lucky. It was a dream always to play for the Wallabies, and got to do it with household names, Matt Burks, George Gregans, Larkhams, Elton Flatleys, who I played junior footy with, but all those sort of guys, Joe Roff, Wendell Saylor, Lottie DeKiri, Matt Rogers, that was my first squad. Chris Latham, then guys like George Smith, obviously Phil Ward. I grew up with them, so it wasn't the same thing. I'd always grown up with those guys as much, but the Giffins and all those guys, it was pretty surreal experience to be in that sort of company.
Oh, I'm sure it was. I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty out of touch with rugby. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I did used to watch it back in the day, and I remember those names like Takiri, Saylor, Rogers, yourself. I remember I'd sit down on the couch, I'd watch the Wallabies, I'd watch the Shoot Sealed, and just all of these big names in the big golden generation of the Wallabies. So what was it like to be thrown in the deep end straight into a World Cup squad that was so stacked, had such a big expectation on them because it was in Australia, wasn't it, the World Cup? Yeah. And so all this expectation, what was it like just to be immediately thrown into a locker room that had legends of the game in just every second locker?
It's a good comment. People forget, and what you're saying isn't uncommon. What we're hearing these days is I've got a lot of mates who played a lot of rugby and don't watch it a lot anymore, which is a shame. But I guess people forget I came from that golden era in many respects that, you know, the Wallabies won the 91 World Cup. The game goes professional in 95. They win the 99 World Cup. The Lions come in 2001, and then a home World Cup in 2003. So rugby just got catapulted, and it's a world game. Like, rugby at the moment is huge everywhere else in the world than Australia. Like, it's not struggling anywhere else. It's huge. So it came on, like, we, like, literally, and you can check the numbers. If we played, for the Waratahs, if we played at the footy stadium, we played the Brumbies, the Reds, or the Crusaders, or the Blues, it'd be a 37,000 minimum crowd. That's just the reality. That was just fact. It was packed. You know, we wouldn't get a crowd under. If we didn't get 25,000, they'd lose money.
Yeah.
It was so different rugby then. Like, you had blokes like Wendell and Lottie and Matt Rogers coming across, not for massive pay rises, but they wanted the global exposure and they wanted to be part of World Cup. They came for the opportunity and you know, the next frontier, I guess, where it was just, rugby was big, you know. Joey Johns was a bee's dick away from signing in rugby.
Yeah.
A last-ditch offer coming in, securing his future, from what I understand. I know Joey well, so he hasn't told me this, so I'll make sure I'm careful what I say. But my understanding was a last-ditch sort of by Channel 9 that threw in the money where it was too good to refuse for his long-term future. So that's how big rugby was then. So
that would have been huge.
It was huge. So going into that World Cup at home after a huge Lions series, which they won, rugby was incredible. We were kept away in Coffs Harbour. That's where our base was then. I think they've used it a bit since then. So we sort of missed a lot of it was like the Olympics. The buzz was like the Olympics of 2000 in 2003. It was huge. Like, you know, crowds were filled up. Like, this is a good story. So Japan played the US in Gosford.
Yep.
On a weekday night. It was sold out. It was pumping. People were just going to watch that game. And this entrepreneur bloke, decided to make these shirts. And I'll get this right. The shirt said Pearl Harbor 42. And then it had Hiroshima 1945. Gosford, the decider. It was hilarious. I think 1-1. It was just funny. You wouldn't do it these days, but that was what they did. These days you cancel for that. But like, it was huge. Like, it was just just buzz. Like, Darling Harbour, the establishment was like it was during the Olympics almost. Like, it was huge, and we didn't really see that to the end of the World Cup because we obviously were kept away. We played the final in against England, which was a huge game. England were probably favourites since they had a side that was touted to win. We had the home ground advantage. You know, probably one of the greatest World Cup finals to date. Double extra time, whatever it was. They get a drop goal and win in a really close match. Could have gone either way. And, you know, obviously Johnny Wilkinson gets knighted to the drop goal over that. And it was huge. And after the tournament, we had our big drink at Bill Young's pub there at the Concord West during the day, and then headed off into night. And for the next week, we went out and drank, and it was still a buzz. We were huge names through, you know, out. And it was like it's the biggest sort of, you know, star thing that I've ever experienced after that World Cup.
Couldn't walk down the street without getting recognised.
Everyone knew who was. Well, that sort of happened after I got in a bit of trouble in a few incidences that happened. But no, it was and look, and I guess we can touch on it later. But I guess the great positives on that is moving forward. Is we're in a sort of similar situation now. We've got a World Cup in France in 2023. With the Lions coming in 2025, and we've got a whole home World Cup in 27. So, you know, global rugby's strong. If they can really do a few really key things, there's not. Look, I think the world's changed. I think sport's very different now. You've got so many options with streaming and stuff. To get 40,000 crowd is not as easy as it used to be. You know, there's so many more things. But I think rugby can definitely catapult itself in to be, you know, up there with rugby league in a different, and it's not competing against it. It's up there equal as a different sport. I think both sports can coexist and do a good job.
Yeah, fair enough. I was going to bring it up a bit later, but since we're on the topic, what do you think about all this talk about Joseph Sualli coming through into the game? What are your thoughts on the contracts he's getting offered and how it will be for the game?
I think it's great. I get the negative impact. Like, people will say it's a lot of money to spend and all this, and they're spending that money, and and what about the people who have been loyal and all that stuff. But you've got to remember, Joey Sualli, or Joseph Sualli, grew up playing rugby and league. He played both. He played Eastwood Juniors his whole way through. He was at Kings. He played first there from year 9 to year 11. Didn't play in year 12 because he had a league contract. Don't quote me, but that's what I understand. And look, they've got him back. And you can just see how dirty and how filthy rugby league are, the fact that he signed, that it's a good signing.
Yeah.
You don't just, 1.6 million. What is that 1.6 million? It's not just getting Joey Sualli. It's getting us on the back page again. It's getting us a quality athlete who's made a decision to play rugby union over rugby league. And people got to remember that rugby league and rugby union, although they were similar, they are very different too. There's a lot of difference. And I always say this, Tedesco is nowhere near as good at rugby union as he is rugby league. Just fact.
Yeah.
It's been proven with Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, that sort of player. The fullback at Newcastle, Miller, played Australian sevens, couldn't make it in rugby. He's doing very well at fullback for Newcastle Knights. Smaller, quicker, more agile. But when you look at the rugby union guys we have got, who are the Lotties, the Wendells, the big guys, Folau. As much as anyone can say anything about Israel Folau, he was an incredible signing from rugby league, AFL to rugby.
Did everything.
Incredible. He was the world's best player, and probably still would be if he was still there. He was incredible, unbelievable. And you look at the physique and the size of those players who do well, and that's Joseph Sualli. Guys like Travojevic would be a great signing. Mitchell would be a great signing because they're explosive and they're big. But then you go look at Dylan Edwards for Penrith.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Yeah.
He's a great player. Dylan Edwards might be a better fullback than Joseph Sualli in rugby league. I get it.
But not rugby.
No way. I'm taking Joseph Sualli every day of the week.
Yeah.
And people forget that. They forget that there are differences which come to size, height, the way they play, that are so different, And people go to me Crichton, Cam Murray. Well, I'm saying Cam Murray every day of the week to rugby union.
Yeah.
He'd be a great 12.
I reckon.
Crichton, right, he might be good.
Yeah.
He might be a good 6 or 8. He might be a good 12. But I know Cam Murray would be unbelievable.
I reckon.
I just know that.
Cam Murray and Payne Haas, if you get those two, I reckon that'd be so good for the game.
Yeah, Payne Haas. My only concern with Payne Haas is whereas he plays. He plays 6 and 8. Can he jump in line-outs? Can he be that option? Probably. He's only young, so yeah. But I agree. But if I'm looking at guys that I want to get across, and I know we got this topic, but the guys that get across, it's Brandon Smith's bagging it out. Of course he is.
Yeah.
He's not. Where's he going to play in rugby?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where does Brandon Smith play in rugby? Tell me a spot that he plays for the Wallabies in.
Couldn't.
Yeah. But conversely, where am I going to play in rugby league when I was playing at 100? There's nowhere for me to play.
100%.
Payne Haas is a forward, is a prop in league. He comes across and plays back row.
Yeah.
Sam Burgess, people forget Sam Burgess was a 12. Sonny Bill was a 12 in Union. They're both big key forward guys. So it's very different. It's got to be select guys, and I think Joseph Sualli is a great signing. And the back of that $1.6 million, I know everyone's come back to the number, I don't think it's important. He's already made that money in the profile, getting across.
Yeah.
I think it's a great decision, and we just got to see past. There's two sides of the coin here. There is participation, and which is the lifeblood of the game, and it's the junior and the grassroots. That is the lifeblood. We have to invest in that to make our game a future, but it's not the only lifeblood. It's not the only lifeblood. We got to tackle it two sides. Participation, grassroots has to start there, but we also got to get this. You can't sell a secret. You got to get rugby back in the headlines, back in there. The two biggest things at the moment in sport, or whatever you want to call them, are F1 and UFC.
Yeah.
They haven't got great participation rate. We're not going out and go-karting. Our kids, there's probably some kids go-karting now because of it, but that's not about participation. That F1 was dying. They rebranded. They got all this. They got it out there. They made the drivers personable. We got to know them. UFC did the same thing with their athletes.
Yeah.
We got to know them. We care about. We got to know this backstory. Yeah, there's a bit of a WWE element in both of. I have no doubt the drama they put into Drive Survive is a bit over the top.
100%.
Probably.
And similar with UFC, what's his name? The Cody. I forgot his last name. He's been a WD character. I get it. But that sells.
Yeah, 100%.
And that whole thing sells. I'm not saying we go out there and we be outlandish, but we need to think of what we're doing in that aspect to attract the masses and get people interested in rugby again. On both.
So do you think if Sualli works and they start to see that trend get back, he draws in bigger crowds, draws in the headlines, that they're just going to keep chasing those big names, not even from just NRL, any sort of athletes around the world that are of the rugby build and can make the jump, they're just going to keep chasing them because that's what they, need to do to keep bringing the names back?
No, I think that's going to be selective. Like I think it is silly to go after league players who aren't going to make it. It's being selective and it's picking the right ones. And for me, the ones that I was if I was in the AU, I would have gone hard at Sualli like they did, which everyone would have. So that's not a real thing. I'd be going hard at Cam Murray and other outside backs who are big. Yeah, but Cam Murray and Nico Hines is a bit old. I reckon he'd be a great 10 too, but he's probably a bit old, and I get that people, and also the quality of the type of person too. Like Nico Hines and Cam Murray would really suit a conducive team. They'd bring a lot to the culture, which I think is important in rugby.
Yeah, I honestly think it's great because, I don't know, I grew up in a rugby union, rugby league kind of household where we'd always be watching it kind of thing. We weren't too big on it, but enough where I knew what was going on. You see this and it's back on the front page and it's just publicity. Like, you watch how many people, Joseph Sualli goes out and plays his first game for the Wallabies. How many people are going to be watching just because he's playing his first game? They want to see how he goes.
100%.
It's awesome.
Phil Wall back as CEO, which is a Wallaby and an Aussie. He replaces the South African guy, which, mate, I'm not talking about who's the better CEO. I'm just talking in the background that's awesome for us. Yep. It'll get it back on the back page. He knows the grassroots game. He will put a lot of effort into that. The club rugby, the juniors, and the schools. He'll put a massive effort into that. But he'll also put the effort into getting the Wallabies known and he'll bring a bit of attitude. It's not about being liked for Phil and Eddie especially.
Yeah.
It's about winning. They are both winners, and Eddie as head coach, that's already proven to be instrumental in getting rugby back, and the people are talking about it. Now, if we don't deliver and we're not successful, it won't matter. You've got to be successful too.
Yeah.
The Wallabies have to be successful. They can do everything right. They can get participation better. They can sell the game better. They can get everyone ready to go. But if they're not winning,
what's the point?
It don't matter.
Yeah.
But look, the great thing about Australian rugby at the moment, we have the athletes, we have the cattle. Are we as smart as we were one day? That's an argument. I think we probably lack a bit of the what do they call it? The rugby IQ. It's not the players' fault. It's just the nature of the game and playing multiple sports. But I think we can work on that. Look, the Wallaby side that I were in were often the games we won against the All Blacks. And there wasn't a lot, to be fair, but there was the guys before me as rugby players, they probably weren't as good. Definitely not as good, but we were smarter than them, so that's where we beat them. So I think Eddie will bring a lot of that smarts back. Phil and Eddie, who are both smart, uncompromising competitors, and that's what I think the squad needs.
I don't see where the rugby league are coming across as being so angry that Sualli's getting offered this. When you look back at 2012 when GWS got brought into the AFL, and Pete Volandes straight away has gone, all right, well, I'm going to bump as much as I can to make NRL as big as possible and kick out AFL from Sydney. It's the exact same thing, but it's across. Now it's happening to rugby league and everyone's getting so outraged.
The only reason he cares about it,
it's all money.
Because it works. It's obviously he's scared and he's worried about it. And both games can coexist. Like, I watch a lot of league. And I love it. A South Sydney fan since I was 5. I love watching rugby league. I love watching rugby union. There's some things about rugby union that we could learn from rugby league and vice versa.
Yeah.
But, mate, I think both games can coexist. And, you got to remember, though, after Super League, and Super League drove a lot, you guys wouldn't remember, Super League drove a lot of people out of rugby league and helped rugby union springboard. They lost a lot of fans that came to rugby union because of Super League, and then, Super League was, quote me numbers, but it's 96, 97, 98, so just after we go professional. So rugby catapulted as well as what they did, but also on the back of that too. So, it wasn't long ago after Super League when NRL was, a couple of thousand.
On its knees.
On its knees, really struggling to get back in. People had lost a lot of passion for rugby league. I still watched it. I loved it. But, so they'd be very aware of that. They don't want to lose their market share. It's a business.
Yeah.
It's a business, and they're doing whatever they can to keep the rugby league mentality is, us against them, and that works for them.
Well, that's good. We'll move aside from this. I'm going to go backtrack a little bit. 2003 in the Waratahs, the famous drop goal of yours.
Yeah.
Let's talk us through it. What's going on there?
Well, I just can't believe. So Johnny Wilkinson. Can I swear?
You can swear.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Johnny Wilkinson gets fucking knighted in 2003 for his drop goal. I kick a goal that was definitely 20 metres further, a much harder kick, and I get ridiculed. Look, that's 20 years ago now. It's over 20. It was May.
Yeah,
03.
we were 1 year old when it happened.
1
so
year old.
we've gone back and done the research and seen
Watched
it.
many replays. But please explain to those who wouldn't realise why, that was a bad thing to get points on the board and to get further in front.
So I think we were winning 17 something.
Yeah.
We were up by 5 or something. It was 68 minutes into the game. We needed 4 tries to the bonus point to make the semis. So if we got 4 tries, we're in the 4th spot ahead of the Brumbies. That was pretty much down to that. We'd scored 4 tries. There was 12 minutes. If you see the footage, they infringed the ruck. The ball gets thrown by Witts. His arm gets slapped. The ball, instead of going to someone, lateral went to me, who was bludgeoning straight behind him. 68 minutes is a long time for a front rower to be in the panic. People forget that. We used to have one prop reserve. So one prop would generally always play 80 minutes, or at least a large portion, if they didn't come back on. So 68 minutes, the ball gets tapped out. I catch it off my ankles. They're playing advantage. Everyone knows the advantage. There's nothing on. So in that stage of rugby, when they played advantage, everyone would just snap a drop goal, and you miss and you get the penalty.
Get the penalty,
yeah. So I did the same thing, except I hit this thing as sweet as a nut. It just goes. It goes straight as a die. And I can still see it in slow motion. I'm chasing this ball, trying to drag it back, thinking it was just nothing. It went so slow in time. It was like something out of the movies where they slow it down. I'm chasing. I could see it happening, and I knew very early that it wasn't going to miss, and there was nothing I could do about it. So, look, was it overplayed a bit? Probably, but why not? Because it's funny. For one, props don't kick drop goals. 2, it's theatre. It'll get bigger and bigger. We still didn't get the 4 tries. We still got the kick-off back, but I guess we got the ball back on our 40, where if I hadn't have kicked it, we would have gone for touch and been in there 22 on the attack. Everyone forgets the missed tries, but we could have scored that night.
You're the replay that gets talked about.
So the next morning, I'm in the hotel room, and I go, I check. We had after a season, you used to have a big drink back then. So a big drink after. We drunk for the next 2 days, actually, because it was the end of our season, Super Rugby season. So I go to my hotel, I got all these text messages saying, "Are you okay? Don't worry about it. Head up." I go, "Well, it's only that bad." It was a drop goal, but there was so many other things to it. Anyway, I grabbed the paper in and I pull it in and I look at the paper and I turn around and the back page said "Dumb" and "Dunning."
Oh.
So that's what they were texting about.
Stitch up.
Bit of a stitch up. And the next back page was "Dumb and Dunning Part 2," but that was a different story. So that was a Mad Monday expedite. No. So that was sort of the drop goal down to the tee. But look, mate, within 2 weeks, less than a week, I was in a Wallaby camp for the first time with all those guys that we spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
I remember just turning up at Wallaby camp and Wendell and the boys making jokes about the drop goal and the incident that happened a few days after, and I was just it was a World Cup year, so it came up more sort of. It's come up more frequency in the last 10 years than probably I remember in the first 10 years of it happening.
Probably because, YouTube comes out, social media comes out.
That's probably a tell you.
Shared
I
around.
didn't think about that. Probably when it first happened, there wasn't the YouTube and that, but since it's
the
mate,
new normal.
now you apparently my kids tell me if you Google me, you apparently the drop goal and 2 intercepts is the only thing you see.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
So for 20 years career, all that comes up is a drop goal and 2 intercepts.
That's it. As we talk more about your Wallaby career, I want to hear what's the loosest story from off the field with either you personally or some of the boys that you were with off camp.
The loosest story, that's there's so many. When you mean loose, like the definition of loose is very loose. So
and it's dangerous too.
As loose as you can tell us without getting into any trouble.
Yeah, like we said, back in 2003 in the 90s, you couldn't get cancelled, but today's very different.
So like some of the stories now you're retelling, people will be cancelled over them. There's comedians being cancelled for things they said in the 80s.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Actually, we've got a couple of young blokes. One of them, he plays first grade at Eastwood, Matt Minogue, and his brother Pat Minogue. They work with us, and we've shown them a few clips of different things like Eddie Murphy, Delirious, and other things, and they can't believe that was even allowed in the air. So you got to be careful. What's some stories that you can tell? I think the midweek drinking was probably something that you wouldn't associate there now. Like I know I've heard Willie Mason tell the story how the Kangaroos are in Europe and we're in Europe. We're both in Paris, and we're playing tests that weekend, and it's a Thursday night. So it's a Wednesday night to be fair, because we had Thursday off, so Wednesday night, and we're all out till 5 in the morning, and we've all had like a 12-hour drinking session. The night of the Wednesday night before a Saturday test, and that wasn't wasn't abnormal. Yeah. There's some. I'll come back to if I can remember the best story to tell. I'll come back to it. I want to give you a good story that I can tell. So I'll come back to that one.
I've got a story for you. I'm not sure if you're going to remember this one. This is comes straight from my old man. The 2007 Wales versus Australia game in Sydney. Yeah. You guys won 29-23. You've skipped the celebrations with the team. You've come straight to the fence where my dad is and his mate Cage, very well.
Very well.
And you've just won a test for, I don't know if it was I couldn't tell you if it was a trial game, whatever it was. But
all test matches are test matches. That's the great thing. There's no trial game. That's a good thing about those. Tests are tests.
So you're still full kitted up and you're sweating. You walk straight over to Dad and you've gone, so who's gone the best at Asquith today? That's what you said. That's what's happened. I'm not sure if you remember that.
So I just come back into the Wallaby side. I didn't get picked in 2006. I got back into the side in 2007. 2007, just back into the side, and it looks like we're going to lose this test match against Wales. Like, I played the first 7, he came off with 10 to go. It looks like we're going to lose this test. I remember, and I'm not even religious. I remember praying to God that we won. And I think I might even promise never to drink again if we won that game. And I had a big night that night, so I lied. I'm not religious at all. I just couldn't. It's like you only pray. Everyone's an atheist until they're about to die. So just in case. So we're going to lose anyway. We score after the bell. Stephen Hoyle does something, passes, and we win. It's pandemonium. One it was a bit. So pandemonium's the wrong word. It was just relief. If we lose that test, it was going to be terrible going into the 2007 World Cup, and I just got back in and thought I get dropped and whatever. Yeah, and then I love my golf. I still love my golf, but I was really passionate about my golf then, and I'd only sort of just got into it over the last sort of 2 or 3 years before that. And I ran over to the boys in the crowd and asked them who won the cock of the walk match, and I wanted all the details, and they thought it was a bit weird, but it wasn't unusual for me to ring up the boys on a test at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. So 7 o'clock, but about 5:30 or 6 o'clock, I'd often ring the boys and ask them the golf results before they had it online. So I'd ask who won, and they say, "Are you playing a test in an hour and a half?" I said, "Yeah," but I just wanted to know who won. I remember I'd get them to talk through the whole round they played and the holes and ask questions, and it was a good distraction, really.
Yeah, my old man still brings that story up to this day. And then as we move on again, I just want to tell me to bring this up as well. There's a very loose Mad Monday at Eastwood. I'm not sure if you remember that, but what happened there that Dad's told me to ask you about that one?
I don't know what he's talking about there.
Which one?
Which one, yes. There was a Mad Monday where some guys did some silly things and drove cars down the hill and rolled all those things down. There's been some crazy Mad Mondays I've been involved with. The good one was What's a good one, Mad Monday? Yeah, there's been some good ones. I'll come back to that.
That's all right.
Okay.
And
So I guess as we move a little bit away from the career, as again we'll probably touch on it towards the end, but just if you don't mind talking about it, the weight loss, the big transformation. Like you said, you were pushing how much during the career?
So I played. The program said I was 115 kilos.
Yeah.
But really, I was generally between, at my lightest, there's a couple of games I might have played 117, but generally between 117 and 123 for most of my career. So, yeah, I was big. After retirement, I got into business development, so it was literally just drinking, eating, and coffees and, meetings. And I blew out to about 132 kilos with no weights training. So I'd probably lost about 5 or 6 kilos at least of muscle mass too. So I was, I would have looked 140 compared, Anyway, that's when I finally got to play a little bit of my rugby league once I retired. Anyway, I played a game for the Brow Wallabies. I had a massive night the night before. I got down to their ladies' day or whatever they had down there, and we had my kids were played in the juniors and all that, and had a massive crowd, massive fundraiser day, and anyway, they were going to have to forfeit because they didn't have a team. I already had about 6 cans. I said, you can't forfeit all the people here to watch and blah, blah. I said, well, we're going to have to. We have to have a certain number to start the game. And they said, I said, well, the 19s will be here by half time. The under 19 side were going to come by half time. They were playing away.
Yep.
So we'd have players at half time. I said, so right. So I've rustled up about 4 or 5 extra guys on the hill, and we've played. So I'm probably eight beers deep, big night out, and I'm playing rugby league. I have one of the greatest photos of a cork thigh that's so bruised. There's a reason why you shouldn't drink, and it's not very good for blood flow when you get a cork. Anyway, so we do that. Anyway, I'm cutting to the story. Anyway, so that happens. Anyway, they did this big thing about how it's great that Matt Dunning finally played for the Brow Wallabies. It was a great day and blah, blah, blah. I can't remember if we won or not. Anyway, they put a photo up, and this big photo came out, and I was like, literally, this photo has me wearing a quadruple extra large jersey, and it looks like a tattoo. It's a horrendous photo. So I saw that photo, and someone had contacted me about losing weight with one of those Netmark working programs, stuff like that. And I said, whatever. Anyway, I rang them the next day and said, sign me up, let's get started. And I did a thing called isogenics or something at the time. I haven't done it for a long while since, but a thing called isogenics at the time, and I lost shivers. I must have lost 42 kilos in about 8 months.
Wow.
So I went from 132 to about 86, don't quote me, or something like that. I lost a massive amount of weight. A lot of lifestyle changes at the back end of that too. The whole premise about losing weight was I didn't want to have to train, and I didn't want to have to give up alcohol. And then 10 or 15 kilos in, I'm training, and then 35 kilos in, I'm having a spell from the drink, and I lost more and more weight. And that's how I got started. The reality of isogenics, it's a man shake, whatever you want to do, they're all the same in many respects. It's calorie controlled. So I lost a lot of weight by starving myself. And then the next sort of period through that was finding what the balance was for me, and I've tried so many different things. My weight's changed. I've done juice fasts. I've done everything. I've settled with sort of more of a keto lifestyle, which is good for me these days. The first thing I've done where you don't have to worry about quantity. You can just manage what you eat. I'd love to have the discipline to go to a sort of a carnivorous diet, but I haven't got there yet. But that's the next frontier. But I've tried them all. But that got me started, and now it's just it's just a lifestyle thing now. It's the thing is, the reality is, if you're 132 kilos, unfit, unhealthy at 33, that's 2 years of retirement. What are you going to look like at 52? Probably not going to be alive on that trajectory. So that's what happened.
Fair enough. And what do you get up to these days? What are your hobbies? Most of your hobbies that you get up to. So obviously you're working now and stuff like that. But what do you like to get up to?
I still love my golf. I've during COVID, like everyone, I played a fair bit of golf and got my handicap as low as it's ever been. And since COVID, work's picked up. Like, work's very busy. You got to, you just can't play the golf I used to play. So it's struggling a bit with golf at the moment, but I still love it. But I've got a young family, I've got old kids, I've got Like the old boys who are similar age to you, Nick,
Yep.
23 and 2020. The little boys now who are 5 and 4. So between them and work, there's not much time. So I want to get back into my golf. But since I had an ankle fusion just over 12 months ago, so it sort of ruled me out of golf for a bit. And pre the ankle fusion, I couldn't get around 18 holes anymore in a golf cart. That's how bad my ankle was.
Yeah.
It was just chronic arthritis. So that was sort of what. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of things that are out there why I stopped, why I retired. You know, my shoulder, my neck, and all this stuff. The reality was my ankle.
Yeah.
It was always horrendous. I injured it playing basketball when I was 12. But now it's work. I work at a company called Resolve XO. We're corporate real estate advisors. It's a great job, great company. Love it. Bit of a niche what we do. Just love it, mate. And it's all about, a lot of travel, seeing different businesses, trying to help them with their property strategies and stuff. And it's awesome just working with different people each day and seeing different businesses. You see some incredible businesses of success and struggling, and it's always new and exciting. So that, and I'd love to get my handicap back down to 5 like I got at one stage. But the reality was golf. My golf swing's horrendous. It always has been. It's just I play good golf when I play 3 times a week and practice 3 times a week.
Yeah.
If I don't, I play terrible golf.
What are you playing off now?
I've got 10 or 11, 10 point something now. It's like 10.2. It's embarrassing, but
That's still all right.
well, no, mate, it's not. It's but it's just golf's one of those games where it's just you have to live and breathe it. Especially someone like me who didn't play as a kid, so my swing's not very good. So I have to be playing so much golf to play anywhere near my best. And these days I'm a long way from that. But the ankle fusion, I mean, I walked 36 holes a couple of months ago, which is unheard of for me. So the ankle's actually awesome for my lifestyle and everything.
Fantastic.
I'll never be able to run again, but I couldn't run pre-surgery anyway with my ankle. But there's no excuses. I'm just not playing well. I don't know. I just maybe I've just lost it. Whatever little bit I had. What else? Mate, I haven't got any time. I don't know how I had time before to do all the stuff I did. I think golf, work, young kids, old kids, living costs in Sydney of like I've never seen them so high. Like what's happened the last 12 months, mate. I haven't.
We're
no time
fucked.
for golf. Yeah.
We are fucked when we go to buy a house.
Well, the only thing good, positive coming out of these interest rates is there's going to be a lot of foreclosures, I reckon, soon. So, housing prices surely will have to drop a bit to make it easier for you guys to get into the market. But that's it, mate. I've still got to come back with a loose story. It's some pretty good loose stories. I remember a couple of stories. I remember Des Tuivai was on the bench one night. We're playing in front of a packed SFS, not even SCG. Allianz was called now. Anyway, he's on the bench. He goes over to the sideline. He's warming up. He chats to someone, gets a number, puts it in his pocket, plays the last 20 minutes of the game. Anyway, next, we're at Cargo Bar at 3 a.m. She turns up and I think he ended up dating her for like 2 or 3 years after that. That was pretty cool. There's been a lot of loose stories that aren't sort of fit for camera. I bring Des Tuivai back in that Mad Monday, that Dumb and Dunning Part 2. We're at the Scuba. We've been drinking for 3 days. Desi wanted me to go out with him to the Cross at 3 a.m. I said, no, I'm not going out. I had a cut hand. I was hungover anyway. You wouldn't believe this, but Desi's headbutted my fist and his nose has gone everywhere and I've got, Matt Burke was there. It was horrendous anyway, so that was pretty loose night. But, mate, the world's changed, It's I just can't believe the way the world's changed. And, some of those stories we say today, you said, people get cancelled in perspective now. So it's like, you've got to be careful.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll probably the last one here that we have before we can let you go. Obviously, you said you got 4 boys, is it?
4 boys,
4 boys, 2 that I met maybe when I was very young. But how have you gone and about, obviously, playing rugby and stuff with them? Are you trying to push for them to try and play top level, or what kind of, as a father coming out of being an athlete, a professional athlete, how do you go about it with your kids, trying to, obviously, if they want to pursue that career, how do you want to push them, but obviously not push them too hard kind of thing? How have you gone about that?
With all of them, like obviously the older boys, the second oldest boy, he had my physique, so he had a bit of a head start to be a front rower. I'll do whatever I can for them to make the next level, but in the day, it's got to be self. It's like a lot of things
Yeah.
in life. You got to be self-motivated.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how hard someone pushes you, what you do. Like, yeah, Tiger's dad and the stories, all these, you know, the Williams sisters' dad. There's those stories, but the reality is, kids, those kids had self-belief like you would not believe, self-motivation. It's got to come within. It doesn't matter. Like, you know, the reality is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I say or do. It's up to them if they want to do it, and I'm there to support them, to help them. I think sometimes it's almost better stepping away and just being dad rather than being the sporting person.
So we'll never see you on the sideline as the coach for
I coached the Brow Wallabies under 13s or 14s. I remember one year, and I love that. I love coaching to get individual skills and help them coaching. I'll definitely coach.
Okay.
But to push them to be professional if they want it and they really want it and they'll give everything to it, I hope them get there. But the reality is that, you know, unless you're in a certain sport, there's not many sports, and it's not about that, but, you know, yes, sporting people will get a lot of money, and I think that's sort of telegraphed, but reality is it isn't that much. Compared to average earnings, it's massive, but you've only got a limited lifespan, right?
Yeah.
But what doesn't get reported is, you know, I have plenty of friends of mine who are in business who made a lot more money than me at the same age doing something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't get reported. That doesn't get done. Like, it's like, oh, well, that's different. You know, so, like, there's plenty of people who could have made it in rugby, but they chose not to. Not just because, you know, they didn't want to do it or they didn't want, you know, they didn't want, but they just thought they could do better doing else, and they, you know, they weren't committed. They thought they could do better in other avenues. So the reality is, if you want to do professional sport, you've got to want it because you want to be the best you can be at that sport and be successful. And the money's got to be 100% secondary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, you know, it's not, unless you're going to drive F1 cars or play in the NBA and have generational wealth and, you know, and not have to work after you're playing. But the reality is, even, you know, 90% of all, probably higher, of all professional athletes who play a team sport in Australia have to work after they're finished playing. It's not like they set themselves up for life.
And not everyone goes straight into the media.
No.
Yeah.
Not for everyone. So I get a bit annoyed sometimes because, they're getting all that money to play football. They should be role models. They should be doing this. They should be doing that. They should be doing this. But they can only earn it for 10 years. They're paying half their money in tax. You know, it's the beauty I had is all I wanted to do. So I put everything into rugby. I had no plan B. They always tell you to have a plan B. I didn't have a plan B, so I had nothing else to fall back on. Yes, I did some study, I did some stuff, but you know, that's what I wanted, so I did it. But look, I'll be there. My boys, young boys now, 5 and 4, they love rugby league and love rugby. I'll help them. I'll do whatever I can. But at the end of the stage, whatever makes them happy. And you know, there's a lot of things in rugby. Like I wouldn't change a thing. Like I wouldn't change a thing. But you know, I've got a snapped Achilles. I've got a fused ankle. I've got a ruptured bicep. My left shoulder doesn't work real well. Like, you know, I've got neck problems. You know, who knows with all this CTE stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, you know, there's a lot of sacrifice you make. Wouldn't change a thing, but if I've got a son who that's all they want to do, I'll support them. But I'm not going to push them into something that I want to do because it's definitely not worth it unless that's all you want to do.
It's fair enough.
Fair enough.
100%.
100% fair enough.
Well, Maddie, thank you for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
Hopefully, if this video all works, it's our first live interview. First
filmed interview.
So I'm your best looking ever person on
Yeah.
this.
There you go.
Best looking guest ever.
Apart from us.
Best,
but
smartest and best looking guest ever. Oh, well.
there you go.
That might last only 1 week. Mate, thanks for having me on, guys. Good luck. Mate, great setup here at the Bella Vista Hotel, mate. You're very lucky.
Yeah,
It's awesome
definitely.
doing it here. Mate, maybe down the track, if you need me to come back, I'll come back on.
Beauty.
Good. Thank you very
In a
much.
heartbeat. Thank you very much.
No worries, guys.